All right, welcome in Saturday night. I'm packing, getting ready to fly out tomorrow. Hopefully, it can happen with this rain that's coming down in the Bay Area. I get it that rain doesn't normally stop flights, but they're saying a lot of wind too tomorrow. Thing is, the 49ers, they have to fly out tomorrow too. And those of you who are interested, bring an umbrella. But if you're interested in sending the team off, 3:30 p.m. Levi Stadium. I think it's Stars and Stripes Drive is where the main viewing area is going to be. I'm sure a lot of fans, even if it is raining, are going to show up and they're going to be taking pictures, cheering, waving at the buses. It's actually a spectacle. Anytime an NFL team moves from place to place, they're going to have all their buses. And this is, I don't think the rest of the organization is going until later in the week. Everybody is going, right? Even the interns. Jed York is making sure that everybody's taken care of on charter planes. So that's going to be later in the week. But tomorrow's the team. Tomorrow's going to be the initial convoy. And anytime an NFL team moves from place to place, you've got the police escort. You've got the lane of the highway shut down. I was down on my way to the divisional round game against the Packers, and it turns out that Green Bay stayed at Menlo Park. So I was taking one-on-one down to Levi Stadium from the city, and all of a sudden, Highway Patrol is doing all their crazy stuff, lane breaks and all that to create some space. And here come the Packers and their police escort. So I kind of just rode with the police escort right behind them. They're my lead blocker. The Packers were the fullback all the way to Levi Stadium. Anyway, that's what it's going to look like tomorrow with the 49ers leaving the facility, heading to SJC. It's a quick hour-long flight at most to Las Vegas, and you have to hope that they are not delayed. And they're less likely to get delayed than a typical airliner because I think it's easier to take off. The problem is once your inbound plane starts getting delayed because of the storm. And I'm probably going to be a little more susceptible to that. But I am flying at 11 tomorrow out of SFO, and that has me beating the 49ers to Vegas by a few hours if we're on schedule. That's me knocking on wood. And if I do get to Vegas before the 49ers, I will be able to go back to the airport when the 49ers land and also be able to be there when the Chiefs land an hour earlier. I think it's Chiefs at 6, 49ers at 7. No, Chiefs at 5, 49ers at 6. We're going to get to see the plane roll into the hangar, and I'll get good video if I make it in time. Knock on wood. Tomorrow. So that's the plan tomorrow. I will report from Las Vegas. That ended up being one of the cooler events that I attended in Miami 4 years ago when the 49ers landed in Miami. The pilot had a flag, a Niners flag, lands there from San Jose, and he opens up the window and he plants the 49ers flag in the little holder or whatever they had. And so this plane is rolling, big 777, whatever it is, rolling down the runway into the hangar with the 49ers flag flying out the window. I thought it was a cool spectacle. It's a nice photo op. So let's hope that I get to Vegas in time for that tomorrow. Then there will be media night on Monday night. The 49ers then will have their Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice week. Friday, maybe it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I forgot what it is, but either way, I'm going to be over at the Hilton Hotel over at the lake, which is what they call it, 16, 17 miles east of the Strip in Las Vegas. I'll be doing all the media stuff with the 49ers there, be around Mandalay Bay during the day at Radio Row. But the 49ers will be practicing at UNLV on whatever days they're practicing. They have white uniforms because they had second choice as the road team. So Kansas City picked their home reds. 49ers picked their road whites. They had to. And the 49ers also had second choice of practice facility. So the Kansas City Chiefs picked the Raiders facility, which has an indoor setup because it might be raining in Las Vegas, whereas the 49ers picked or couldn't pick. They had second choice, and there were only two choices, so they had to opt for UNLV, which I think is only outdoors. But maybe, just maybe, they might have something inside. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see what UNLV has, because now that I think of it, if UNLV, if they have to practice in training camp in August, like I could see that being really damn hot in Vegas. So maybe they have a bubble set up as well. Seems like it would only be fair, right? If the Chiefs can go inside at the Raiders facility in the rain, you would think that the league would set up a competitive balance to where the 49ers can also practice inside. The game will obviously be inside on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium, natural grass at Allegiant Stadium. They're growing it outside. They're going to slide it into the stadium. It is a really, really nice stadium. I think they did a good job with that. We saw Brock Purdy lead a come from behind win at Allegiant Stadium. He's down double digits in the second half of that game on New Year's Day. That was the start of last year, right? That was the start of 2022. So those people who were saying that Brock Purdy hadn't notched a comeback win, well, I don't think that they were paying attention in 2022. Obviously, he has now over the past two games here in the postseason, but this goes back to the game where Devontae Adams and Jarrett Stidham went crazy. 49ers defense definitely showed some cracks in that game. It went to overtime. Remember, Robbie Gould missed a kick at the end of regulation. So Purdy drove the 49ers into position to win the game at the end of regulation. Robbie Gould missed the kick. And then the 49ers got an interception in overtime. And that interception was forced by Nick Bosa's pressure against Stidham. He hit him. Ball floated up in there. Tashawn Gibson caught it. And then finally, Robbie Gould finished the game against the Raiders. The Raiders blew like 5 or 6 double-digit leads last season. It was really, really ugly. 49ers were one of the teams that came back against them. But that was at the stadium, and I'll tell you what, you have an open-air press box in an indoor stadium, which I think is really cool. You can hear how loud that crowd is. One thing that stands out to me about that Raiders 49ers game is that it was the first time that I was at a game where I heard like ear-splitting noise for both teams, if that makes sense. So when the Raiders did something good, ear-splitting noise, they were the home team, you would expect that. But the 49ers had so many fans there that when they did something good, and there was a lot of it, I think the final score was 34-31. It was in the 30s for both teams. Ear-splitting noise for the visiting team too. And, part of that is a lot of excited fans, but another part of it is it's indoors. So that noise is going to reverberate. So I found it to be a really loud building. I thought that the environment was great, and I fully expect the Super Bowl to be ear-splitting in both directions. We're talking about who's going to have more fans. Obviously, the Super Bowl is a very corporate event, so not going to be divided up the same way that an NFC or an AFC title game is. But there were a lot of natural fans from both teams when the 49ers and the Chiefs played in Miami. There were more Chiefs fans at that game, though. Kansas City fans seemed a little bit more enthused. I mean, it had been a really, really, really long time since they were in a Super Bowl, right? It might have been since Super Bowl 2 or 1, where it was wasn't Super Bowl 1 Green Bay, Kansas City? I think that Kansas City hadn't been there for decades. I'm trying to think if they had ever qualified for a Super Bowl. So their fans were ravenous at that point, and I think that they had a majority of the crowd. This time, I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers had more because, A, it's obviously closer to the Bay Area, California, which is going to be the 49ers stronghold. But B, Kansas City has won a couple Super Bowls now, right? They won last year. They won the one against the 49ers. They lost one the year after. That was the COVID year against Tampa Bay. But Kansas City's in dynasty mode right now. They're like, okay, we've won a couple. This is not a novel concept for us. They're obviously enthused, but I think that the fan base that's actually ravenous is the 49ers fan base. And I'm not saying they weren't hungry a few years ago, but it's turned into situation critical for the 49ers now. And situation critical happens when you lose that Super Bowl and then you lose 2 NFC championship games. And all 3 of those losses have come on the heels of a quarter-century Super Bowl drought for a franchise that had won 5 over the 80s and the 90s. So I titled this 49ers Intel, the biggest key for Steve Wilks' defense against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I have a couple things that I want to talk about. First, Travis Kelce was the leading receiver in the 2019 season for Kansas City. Travis Kelce is the leading receiver again for Kansas City this year. As he goes, so goes the Chiefs offense. I've talked about it so much, the run defense for the 49ers, Isaiah Pacheco, and I mean, he's a ball of muscle, and he's broken a lot of tackles this season. You have to gang tackle him. If you don't stop him, then, it doesn't matter what you do against Kelce. It doesn't matter what you do against those mediocre receivers from Kansas City. If you don't slow down the run game, you're toast if you're the 49ers. So that obviously is like the initial key. But I think when you talk about the biggest key, fighting Travis Kelce's improvisation is absolutely mandatory for the 49ers. He, about 3 or 4 times a game, is going to be in a spot where the defense does not expect him to be because it's not part of the play call. A lot of guys would get benched for what Travis Kelce does, but Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, is one of the greatest tight ends of all time. It's worked for him, and Patrick Mahomes knows when he's going to improvise because they have that type of connection, which makes it really hard to defend, which is why you watch these games and you're like, oh, Travis Kelce's wide open. How did he get so open? Shouldn't they be focusing on the guy who is the centerpiece of that passing offense? And the answer is that, yes, teams are focusing on him, but you anticipate he's going to go one way. You anticipate the route structure is going to dictate something specific, and then he'll float off into open space in a way that is totally against the grain of what you're used to. So I think the 49ers and their man zone disguises under Steve Wilks will be really, really important in this game, not just to confuse Patrick Mahomes, but to confuse Travis Kelce. And by confusing one, you might be able to confuse both. But they've got such a good connection and such a good rapport on the field that you're going to have to do something on the back end to disrupt it. And the only way that you're going to be in position to disrupt it, again, is if you stop the run or slow the run. Otherwise, you're going to be on your heels. You're going to end up like the 49ers did last year against the Chiefs. They didn't slow the run, and they gave up 440, 450 passing yards to Patrick Mahomes. It was really ugly. But if you are in position to play downhill against the pass, I think that what Steve Wilks started to do big time, and they were experimenting and tinkering with it a lot over the first half of the season, sometimes to disastrous results, right? We saw what Kirk Cousins did against the 49ers. We saw what Joe Burrow did against the 49ers. The coverage combinations weren't really on point in those games. But once they figured it out, and I think it took the bye week and Steve Wilks moving down to the field to look his players in the eyes and make the right adjustments. But once they got fresh and once that system really took hold, their best game defensively this year was probably the Jacksonville game. And what do you remember from the Jacksonville game? Well, I remember a lot of confusion from Trevor Lawrence. He'd drop back and think that it was man coverage, but the 49ers were actually only running zone. Then you'd think it was zone coverage, but they were actually running man. That is what Steve Wilks was brought in to do for the 49ers. DB background, secondary focus. They wanted to stay ahead of the rest of the league defensively by upping the complexity of what they did on the back end to confuse opposing quarterbacks and, by extension, opposing receivers, since obviously Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes have a rapport where, you have to attack both sides of the equation if you're a defense. And I think that Wilks, by and large, has accomplished that part of his job mandate. Now, what he's not been as good at is the run defense. The run defense has tumbled from a top 5 unit to the number 26 unit in football. And that's hurt everything else. And that's why we've seen the 49ers struggles over the course of the first 2 weeks of this postseason. But the pass defense, they absolutely are in a position to confuse opponents and dictate games. They just have to make sure that the run defense is good enough to let the pass defense do that. This game in particular, Kansas City doesn't have a very good receiving core. The Chiefs they were drop masters over the course of this year. They dropped a lot of passes. Patrick Mahomes is nowhere near as efficient as he was 4 years ago. Nowhere near as explosive as he was 4 years ago, but he has maintained efficiency. The explosiveness is just not there anymore because Tyreek Hill's gone and these receivers can't hold on to deep passes. They've gotten a little bit better over the course of the season, but it's really, really goes back down and boils back down to Travis Kelce. That's who the 49ers have to keep a very close eye on. And I think that some of the coverage combinations and the disguises that Steve Wilks throws out there, I think that those are going to be critical in a game like this when you're facing two real improvisers, right? Mahomes is an improviser. Travis Kelce is an improviser. All right, I am going to open this up to a 49ers Q&A on this beautiful Saturday night. Here we go. Stop the run and have some fun. That's exactly what needs to happen. So the 49ers have a better pass rush than Kansas City. I tweeted a little bit about this today. Interior and exterior rushers. Now, the best pass rusher on the field might be on the Chiefs and Chris Jones, but the 49ers have a better pass rush in terms of depth. Let's get this up on the screen for you. So pass rush productivity ranks out of 60 qualifying defensive ends. Nick Bosa ranks 5th. Kansas City's George Karlaftis ranks 17th. Chase Young is 24 out of 60, so he's been above average in the pass rushing department. And Mike Dana, the Chiefs, now their second edge rusher, because Charles Omenihu, the former 49er, tore his ACL. Mike Dana is ranked near the bottom of the league. So clearly the 49ers have the better edge rushing tandem, right? With Bosa and Young at 5 and 24. How about pass rushing productivity ranks out of 60 qualifying defensive tackles? Well, Chris Jones, tops in football, ranked even higher than Aaron Donald this year. Eric Armstead, he's having a nice year rushing the passer. I know that he has missed some time. I know that he was out of practice the other day, but obviously we expect him to play. He's been getting after the quarterback. Hargrave was in the top 3 last year with Philadelphia. This season, he's down at 14. That's still well above average. And it's ahead of where DeForest Buckner was this year for the Colts at number 16. So Javon Hargrave still a better pass rusher than DeForest Buckner. His metrics have been better every season. But, I think people will be most interested to see that Eric Armstead is ranked higher than DeForest Buckner in pass rushing productivity this year. Look who else is above average for the 49ers. Javon Kinlaw, 25 out of 60. He's got enough reps, too, to qualify for this, which is significant for a guy who had yet to finish an NFL season until this year. The Chiefs' highest defensive tackle outside of Chris Jones is Tershawn Wharton. He's way down at 48. So you can see here that the 49ers have a much deeper pass rush than Kansas City. And they've got to put that to use in this game against the Chiefs. Now, it's really important to have both the tackles and the ends rushing well in cohesion, because Mahomes is a guy that's going to escape and get out of the pocket if you're not rushing with disciplined lanes. Mahomes is not invincible, though. Remember the Super Bowl against the Bucs when his line was beaten up, and he's not going to have Joe Thuney, in all likelihood, the left guard in this game, their best offensive lineman. Remember that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay? Mahomes was running for his life, and he did not have an efficient performance. So if the 49ers can deliver against the run and then deliver a good pass rush, a good disciplined pass rush, Mahomes can be had. He absolutely can be had. He's been had before. He is the best quarterback in football, but it is a team sport. This goes back to you need your weapons, you need your line to do the job. And the 49ers, I'll put it up on the screen one more time. The 49ers have the personnel to overwhelm Kansas City up front, but they have to stop the run. They have to stop the run. That's why I kept Anthony's comment up there. Stop the run and have some fun. What's the deal with all the Chase Young nonsense? I mean, the Chase Young stuff is so oversimplified. There was a really ugly play where we saw Jahmyr Gibbs score a touchdown where it wasn't just Chase Young. It was a couple other guys looked like they were loafing. The 49ers called them out. The 49ers dealt with it internally. They said, guys, this is not the effort that we want. It looked like Chase on that play thought that somebody else was going to make the tackle. He thought that the tackle was not going to be necessitated on the backside. He was coming from the backside. And then he was like, oh, crap. As soon as Jahmyr Gibbs spit out of contact over on the far side, he's running back toward the near side, toward where Chase Young was, and he scored. So it looked terrible. That's a non-negotiable. You can't have that type of lack of effort, right? That being said, Chase Young has had a couple big run stops over the past 2 weeks that it's hard to see the 49ers winning without the run stops that he had in the second half of those games. He's delivered pass rushing wise on a few reps of the past couple weeks. And again, he's not an elite pass rusher. He hadn't performed like that, but he's performed as a top half guy, 24 out of 60 qualifying defensive ends. And to be honest, when Bosa is an elite guy, when Bosa is a top 5 guy, that's what the 49ers have needed for their pass rush. It hasn't been a pass rushing issue for San Francisco. Even Javon Hargrave has been fine at number 14. It has been a run defense issue. And yes, the lack of effort was part of the issue run defensively, but the 49ers think they have that addressed. And let's not pretend that Chase Young did not make any plays down the stretch, because he did. Wasn't this terrible game for Chase Young. There were select plays where it looked really bad, but he also contributed. He also, everybody stepped up in the second half. So I think that people are really, really oversimplifying this, but that is the answer. And sometimes the simplest answer doesn't get you as many clicks, but he's 24 out of 60 qualifying defensive ends in pass rush productivity, which is a really good number to pair to Nick Bosa. We're going to be headed to Taqueria Cancun tonight. You guys should swing by. Get us a beer at Taqueria Cancun. I know it's raining, so nobody will show up, but if you're in the area, it will be fun. My friend Jack and I. We got another go for broke factoid. It's interesting to note that Brock Purdy was the 47th Mr. Irrelevant, or the last pick of the NFL draft. In case the number 47 doesn't ring a bell, the first Super Bowl the 49ers went to in the current millennium was Super Bowl 47 in New Orleans, where the lights went off. 47 rings a bell for me because that's John Lynch's number, right? John Lynch wore the 47 with Tampa Bay and Denver. Mike Shanahan. Funny enough, I'm going to have a story on this coming out tomorrow. The biggest difference between this year's team and the 2019 team. Obviously, McCaffrey and Purdy, too. You went from Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, to one of the greatest backs of all time. That's what Christian McCaffrey is going to go down as. By the time this is all said and done, he's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of running backs, because he's just revolutionized the game. So you've gone to an absolutely supersonic weapon at running back. And I think you've gone from a good quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo to a great quarterback in Brock Purdy. And he's been more durable too, right? So it's one of those things where two of the most important positions have gotten upgrades for the 49ers since that Super Bowl. Obviously, the defense is different now too. I think that the 2019 defense was playing better entering the Super Bowl, but this defense seems to have just as much potential with Kinlaw, Hargrave, Chase Young, top half edge rusher. They had the two edges roaring last time in the playoffs, right? With D Ford and Nick Bosa. But then Ford, it seems like he ran out a little gas in Super Bowl 54. He wasn't nearly as good in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. Keep your eyes peeled, because this 49ers team, I think, has more talent than 2019 on the defensive side of the ball, but they haven't played as well as that unit. Charvarius Ward has played well. He's actually replaced Richard Sherman as the top cornerback. But the big personnel differences are on the offensive side. Oh, yeah, the wide receivers, too. I think Eric Gomes is all capsing us. That's Eric Gomes' style. You got to love it. Here it is. They are better. Debo's no longer a rookie, and Brandon Ayuk, all pro. He also exists now. Also, they have Trent Williams instead of Joe Staley. Trent Williams is one of the greatest of all time. Spencer likes Charvarius Ward, who's going to turn up in Vegas over the next couple nights. That's what he said yesterday. People are way too concerned about that. Mind your own business. These guys can do what they want. It's not like he's going to go out and, I think these guys, they're talking about going to dinner when they say turn up. They'll be fine. They're adults. They'll take care of themselves. This is a good question. Should they start Logan Ryan at nickel? Only if you're really down on Ambry Thomas playing on the outside. The thing is, Diomedor Lenore has been so good at nickel, and that's just as important as outside cornerback. I don't know if Logan is in position to play on the outside, but whenever you move Diomedor Lenore into nickel, then that outside spot opens opposite Charvarius Ward. What are you going to do with it? Ambry's the one player that I don't know if they really trust him, but they trust him the most out of all their options. It's him or Womack, right? I don't think you're going to put Luter in there. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think that I think Ryan at nickel in a pinch happened in the NFC Championship game, but I think with more prep time, you're probably going to see the standard alignment with Ambry Thomas. That was a big, big performance from Logan Ryan and Tashawn Gibson in the NFC title game. Yeah, Demo Lenore has been really damn good for the 49ers. Here's a nickname. We could call the 49ers the greatest class on grass. I love it. I think you should always be worried about the kicker. Even if it was Robbie Gould, you'll be nervous. Robbie Gould back in his prime. Robbie Gould was starting to trail off, I think, last year, but didn't miss in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, Moody's a rookie. It's a huge environment. Robbie Gould missed in this stadium on a last year, Allegiant Stadium, chance to win the game. So this is all a huge, huge deal, right? The pressure is on. So you should be worried about everybody's performance. But I think that Jake Moody has shown resilience. He's shown talent. He's not perfect, but he's done a solid job for the 49ers this year. He hadn't been great. Hadn't been terrible. He's done a solid job for a rookie. It might be a tight game, though, and there might be a lot on his shoulders. So this is where it's going to be money time for Jake Moody. Madden 24 thinks the game goes into OT. I saw somewhere they did a simulation. Was this the same simulation that had Charvarius Ward winning Super Bowl MVP? Wouldn't that be something? Mooney Ward going out and winning Super Bowl MVP. Same officiating crew. Well, that's why the 49ers are getting him primed. They want him to call more holding. There's no coincidence, no accident behind Nick Bosa very openly saying the Chiefs hold a lot. It's true. Their tackles have been flagged for holding a lot this year. It's also true that they got away with a lot of holding in the Super Bowl 4 years ago. Nick Bosa articulating that in his press conference, knowing that would get picked up in the media. That's something that the 49ers are trying to get out there. They want the officials very aware of this. They want some pressure on the officials to throw some flags because the 49ers do believe with this edge rush, they do believe that they can make some noise. And if Kansas City starts getting grabby, the 49ers want those to be 10-yard losses. They want it to be 2nd and 20, 3rd and 15. So 3rd and 15 might not be a good memory for the 49ers. But there's no more Tyreek Hill on the Chiefs. That makes 3rd and 15 a whole heck of a lot harder. Fernando has faith in Jake Moody. Brian asking if the 49ers should try to use Armstead, a defensive end, to set the edge on earlier downs. They used him on a couple snaps out there against the Detroit Lions in a pinch. And it might be something that they try again here. We'll see. I don't think that Chase Young had a bad second half. I think that Chase Young has it in him to deliver a solid game as far as a run-stopping, edge-setting presence goes. He's got to buy in. And I get it. He's been the one player that hasn't been in this culture as long. The 49ers didn't draft him. They traded him because they wanted to upgrade. They have. It's an upgrade over Kerry Hyder on the other side, or that was really a rotating cast of characters on the other side. So they've upgraded, but they still need to be better there. That's where Cleveland Farrell was a nice piece for the 49ers because you knew that he was going to set at least a decent edge, but he's done. He had knee surgery. He's done. So if you hit a pinch where you're like, okay, Chase Young's not getting this done, I think that's why Armstead can potentially move out there for a couple snaps. But then you make yourself a little bit worse on the interior because you're relying on Kinlaw next to Hargrave, and Hargrave hasn't been a great run defender this year. He's more of a pass rusher. Kinlaw, too, has been a better pass rusher than a run defender this year. So Armstead is your best run defender on the inside. Every action as a reaction. So if you move Armstead outside, you don't have Armstead on the inside, and your guys on the inside are more pass rush types than running types, and you're already the number 26 run defense. You can see where I'm going here. This thing could slide out of control, which is why you'd rather keep Armstead on the inside. That's the key to the run defense. So everything circles back to somebody like Chase Young. He's going to be really, really important. We entered this season saying that the 49ers' biggest defensive weakness was probably the edge position opposite Nick Bosa. And the talk was, okay, maybe Drake Jackson will take that next step. He had 3 sacks in the first game. Some of I don't necessarily think he won in a standard Nick Bosa type of way on those sacks. Some of them were effort sacks or downstream sacks where the quarterback, went out of structure and Drake Jackson was able to dive and get him. But anyway, it was a nice first game. That being said, we didn't hear from him after that. No sacks after that for Drake Jackson, and then he was shut down after undergoing knee surgery. So Drake Jackson wasn't the answer. Kerry Hyder, rotational player, wasn't the full-time answer for the 49ers. They still needed a bigger presence on the other side of Nick Bosa, which is why that Chase Young trade was a good trade for the 49ers. He has not been an elite player for San Francisco, though. He's been a good, again, this illustrates it well. He's been a good player, top half, edge rusher, but he hadn't been elite. And there were those effort issues last week. The 49ers think that those effort issues are in the rearview mirror. They better be, or it's going to be hard to beat Kansas City. I don't think that it will get to the point where they have to move Armstead over on every single early base down to defensive end, because if that does happen, you're going to be weaker on the interior, and that's somewhere you don't want to get weaker. This is some good knowledge. The last time Mahomes got sacked 5+ times was with a Wilks-led defense when he was the defensive coordinator with the Browns. Think that Wilks will cook up a good plan. And I think that whenever Wilks cooks up a good plan, the centerpiece of it is the man zone disguise on the back end. I'm going to watch tape of that game against the Browns that you brought up, because I think that if Mahomes is getting sacked 5 times, it means he's holding the ball. And if Mahomes is holding the ball, we know he loves the sling. And if he's holding the ball, he's not trusting what he's seeing on the back end. And Wilks, that's what he specializes in. He specializes on winning the coverage chess match against opposing quarterbacks. So let's take a look at that Browns game. I think that was the 2019 season, was it, when Steve Wilks was in Cleveland? So we'll check it out and report back. You would be a little bit weaker because, like I said, Hargrave and Kinlaw have been better pass rushers than run defenders this year, especially Hargrave. So if you move Armstead out to the edge, that interior is nowhere near as strong as if Armstead is at tackle. It's a pick your poison thing. So your best possible scenario is that Chase Young gets it done at the edge, so you don't have to move Armstead outside and weaken the interior. Because if your interior is weaker against the run, big problems happen. Big problems happen. The interior is where it all starts. Those are the guys that have to absorb the double teams, beat the double teams. If the interior gets caved in, that's where run defenses have a critical fault. That's a critical crack in the middle. So just keep in mind that the 49ers have been better as far as pass rushing profile across the board this year than run defense. All those guys have performed better pass rushing than on run defense. And that's why opponents are saying, well, hell, we're going to run against the 49ers. Let's prove they can stop this before we start playing right into their wheelhouse. Got somebody predicting 5 field goals for Jake Moody. Yeah, Nick Allegretti is the backup left guard. Thuney, though, is one of the better linemen in football, so it would be a big loss if they don't have him. But Allegretti did do a good job filling in. That being said, the Chiefs only scored 17 in that game. It wasn't like their offense lit the world on fire. It was the number 1 defense, obviously, in Baltimore. But this Chiefs offense, I mean, it hasn't been a powerhouse this year. Guess what? The Chiefs are ranked number 24 in explosive play rate. 24 explosive pass rate. Be more specific. Explosive pass rate, number 24. 49ers are number 1. I went into that with the Greatest Show on Turf article that I wrote yesterday. Smash the like button. Does the low-scoring Chiefs versus Ravens game tell me anything? It tells me the Ravens have a damn good defense, and so do the Chiefs. Chiefs their defense was rated higher than their offense this year. My first extensive Super Bowl preview article looking at the numbers and the matchups and the difference from Super Bowl 54 comes out tomorrow. That drops tomorrow. So you'll be able to see what I think of the trends coming out of that Chiefs-Ravens game. But it was low scoring, which goes to show you that Kansas City's playing well on both sides of the ball. Again, higher defensive DVOA than offensive DVOA this season for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what it told me. These guys, and if you, again, you could go here and you see they don't have a great pass rush, but what they do really well, Kansas City, they fly around cohesively on the back end. Steve Spagnuolo has done an awesome job making sure that secondary and the linebackers, so I'll say the whole back seven, because Nick Bolton, the linebacker drafted in 2021, he can really cover too. Those guys operate really, really well as far as a team pass defense goes. So the defensive line to me is weak outside of Chris Jones. The run defense is not good for the Kansas City Chiefs, number 27 against the run. The pass rush isn't great outside of Chris Jones, but the secondary can cover. And a lot of you will say, oh, well, they're so good against the pass and they're not good against the run. 49ers should just run it all day. It's not how things work. Kansas City can sell out against the run and still be good against the run. But if you have to sell out to be good against it, that's when the 49ers should pass. So you can't just sit here and say, okay, this is a passing game plan or a running game plan. The game plan is going to be determined by what Steve Spagnuolo does on the other end as far as commitment to the box. But I'll tell you that some overcommitment's probably going to be necessary given the fact that the Chiefs have struggled against the run on the aggregate and given the fact that their pass rush up front isn't great. This is a coverage over rush team. All right, I'm hungry. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That's 49ers Intel. I looked at both sides. Big flight tomorrow. Got to pack the bags. I'll keep you updated all day long. So for one last time from the San Francisco studio this season, there'll be more later. But one last time from the San Francisco studio this season, we'll celebrate with a nice burrito and a beer right now. Maybe not the beer. We'll see. Should I get a beer? Let me know yes or no on the beer. Thumbs up, thumbs down. But for one last time from the San Francisco studio, I will say so long. It is time for Taqueria Cancun. It's been a fun season. The season's not over yet, but hey, I said last time from Levi's yesterday. Now I'm saying last time from the SF studio. Tomorrow, last time from SFO. We'll have updates throughout the whole thing. So like the video, sub to the channel. Thanks for following along. We'll talk to everybody very soon.